Hi, authors. I'm Tiffany Yates Martin, the founder of Foxprint Editorial, the author of Intuitive Editing, and a career book editor for the last 28 years. And this is Editing Quick Tips. Today, I wanted to give you some tips on how to get objectivity with your manuscript. One of the reasons that editing can be so challenging for authors is that it's hard for you to stop filling in the blanks in your head because you know your story so well. So the trick to learning how to edit your own work is how to get that objective eye, that distant perspective that an editor brings, or a beta reader, or a critique partner. Really quickly, you guys have heard me talk about the difference between editing and revision before, but it's pertinent, so let me just review it really quick. Editing is assessing. Revising is addressing. One of the reasons I think authors get into problems with editing is that they skip that part. They finish their draft and then they go right to revising, but until you know what needs addressing, it's impossible to know how to address it. You guys, if you've followed me at any point, you know that I love HGTV metaphors. So this would be the equivalent of basically going in to paint a room without assessing and preparing the room first. You have to see if there's anything that needs sanding, any holes that need filling in. You need to tape off. You need to take all the outlet covers off. First, you have to do the assessing of the project at hand so you're prepared to actually perform the work. So the first step in being an effective editor is figuring out how to get that objective distance. And I've got a few, I hate to use the word tricks, but that's kind of what they are, because basically you're trying to fool yourself into distancing from the manuscript. The first and best one is time and emotional distance. The best way to do that is once you finish editing, once you finish writing, once you finish your draft, put it down, step away from it, go do something else, work on another project, but better yet, don't work on anything. And I say emotional distance because try to give yourself some headspace from it too. If you take the time away from the manuscript, but you're still trying to work all the problems out in your head, you're really not getting that objectivity. The more time you can take away from a manuscript, the more objectivity you have. But even if all you have is a few days, even if all you have, if you're on deadline and you've got a week or so, even that can be enough to bring you back to it with fresh eyes. Another great way to get distance is to go to a new place or a new environment. In the days before COVID, I used to suggest to authors that they would go to a coffee shop or a library or anywhere that wasn't where you usually write it. But even if you're stuck at home, if you write, let's say in your office, then when you do your edit, which remember, you're just assessing, you're not actually working on the story yet, take it into another room, go into the living room, go into a bedroom, go into the backyard, anywhere you can sort of shake up your headspace so that you're not associating it with the writing process. It gives you a little bit of distance. Another thing authors like to do is have it read aloud to them or read it aloud to themselves. If you don't have an incredibly tolerant friend or family member who'll read your entire manuscript to you, there are text-to-speech services. Don't ask me how they work. I'm not particularly technical, but a lot of programs will automatically read it to you. It's probably in some dry computer voice, but sometimes that's good too, because it really does distance you from being the author of it and you're only hearing what's there. But even if you read your own manuscript aloud, it changes the part of your brain that's taking in the story, and it almost forces you into that objective assessing mindset. This is a tip that I think it almost sounds ridiculous, but you would be amazed how much it works. Change the font of the manuscript. If you wrote it in Times New Roman or Arial or Calibri, change it to something else when you're reading it. Again, it's just one of those little mental tricks that gives you some distance. And a similar one for that is when you are reading through it, whether you print it out, which is another great one. If you print it out, that's another format that you can read it in. But if you are reading the whole thing, put a cover page on it that has a name of an author who is not you. And that can be a real author. It shouldn't be your pen name, but something that is almost a mental trick to get you outside of associating this with your own writing. It's a tiny little trick, but you'd be amazed how well it can work. I talked about printing it out so that it's in a different format. If you usually write on the computer, it's really helpful to have a printed copy so that you are, again, assessing it in a different way with a different region of your brain. And another way to do something similar is to load it onto your e-reader. It'll format it very much like a book, and that is a great way to see it as sort of an outside product instead of this thing that you have created that you're too close to be able to assess. And my last tip for being able to get objectivity is something you can do all the time, whether you're working on something actively, editing or not. And that is to always be practicing assessing other authors' stories, whether that's books, whether it's TV shows, whether it's movies. I have an online course on this that teaches you how to assess this way objectively. And I talk about being able to do it with commercials, being able to do it with ad copy, being able to do it with song. Anything that is story, you can assess with that objective mindset once you know how to do it. And the more you get into the habit of doing that with other people's work, other people's stories, the more you almost osmose that ability to switch from the right brain to the left brain. So your creator mode when you're writing, your assessor mode when you're editing. And it helps you learn how to do that if you've been practicing on work you already have that distance from. This has been Editing Quick Tips. If these are helpful, I have several others on my YouTube channel. Please feel free to subscribe below. You can also visit me at foxprinteditorial.com. There's all kinds of resources for authors, many of them free. I also offer online courses, including the one I just mentioned, which is called How to Train Your Editor Brain, which teaches you how to get this objective mindset and make it a part of your editing process. Thanks. Look forward to seeing you again.